Hello, hello. Do we have movement? Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm going to move the microphone away from my mouth a little bit since last time I checked the thing, it was just really loud. Sorry about that, guys. Jesus, hot. Um, just take my jumper off. All right, guys. Look, this is a video. It's not my usual politics type video. Maybe I'll take my glasses off. It's just something I find incredibly interesting and I like talking about, but not a lot of people find interest in archaeology, and so primarily I'll talk about, I don't know, it'll be about half and half. I do like talking about space, so let's talk about it. And it will just be my opinion. These are not the opinion of experts, so please take it with a grain of salt and just go, look, Steve's a regular guy. He sees something and this is how he understands it. It doesn't make him stupid. It doesn't make him, well, it might make him wrong, but at least he's trying, you know? So strap yourselves in, enjoy the show. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is the Chinese first emperor, tomb. So the tomb is interesting because it is potentially the greatest archaeological find in modern history. Actually, probably is. Assuming the Chinese government ever opens the tomb, which due to cultural reasons they probably never will. That's pretty much the reason they won't do it. It's not because they can't. It's because they just, I don't know. Yeah, look, one of the things that might get them to do it is the fact that, there's a thing that's worth as much as the entire Chinese economy in the tomb, which is the seal of the realm, and that would be a very amazing find. It'd be great to see a replica of the real thing. Obviously, you can't put the real thing in a museum; it would be too valuable. So, a replica would be definitely very interesting to see what was so special and why. Like, they gave you a history on it and why it was special. Now why does the Chinese tomb interest me? Well, I like Chinese history, so that'd be one. I mean, one of the ones that really captured my imagination was the story of Three Kingdoms, or the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Now that is a very good story. It's very long. So you have to actually like history and warfare and love stories and real life, and for you to enjoy it, I guess. If you don't like those things, then you probably wouldn't enjoy it. But look, if you like me and you enjoy these kind of things, that's great. Look, I will say there was a couple people from these. We'll get back to the Chinese emperor, but let's talk about some tombs they have actually opened and uncovered. So there was two famous people I know of from these tombs that were unearthed. One of the ones was Cao, or as the Chinese would say, Toto. So that's how they say it. But we in the West will see it's Cao. That he was kind of the villain of the story, kind of. Yes and no. I mean, it depends how you look at it. He wasn't any more of a villain than any other conqueror or any other person with grand ideas. He didn't really succeed in what he was trying to do, but he didn't fail either. It was sort of like he was. See, back then, a lot of the Chinese they all betrayed each other. So all the royals betrayed each other, and all the important people betrayed each other. So yeah, it's hard to sort of get a guess as to why, in particular, they didn't follow the Toto, because it's not really known. Well, I guess it is, but in the story it is. But what I mean is, why didn't one person in particular take total control? Like, there was three major kingdoms at the time. They all had their reasons for ruling, and yet none of them ever really succeeded. So why? But in saying that, look, I mean, looking at the culture and everything, the king of, was it Han, I think. So Tortor was the king of Wei, and the king of Han is like, they've looked at his stuff as well. Culturally, he was very, quite cultured. Like back then, they had like music and food and I said music and arts and whatnot. So these weren't like times when like you could say that they were uncivilized and what. No, they were very civilized. So it's interesting. But yes, so Tortor, his tomb was Cao, so people understand. Yeah, his tomb was unearthed. It was discovered and unearthed. Interestingly enough, it was attacked by grave robbers before the Chinese government got into the tomb, unfortunately. So we'll never really know how the tomb looked prior. But there is a museum dedicated to Tortor. So, they've got a lot of the stuff there. I don't think they have his skeleton on display or like a replica or anything like, unfortunately. But what they did to the grave robbers did to his body was they picked it up and smashed it on the ground. So he obviously wasn't very liked, if that was the case, to pick up a body and just smash it on the ground. That tells me that Tortor was quite an unlikable person. So I'm guessing they took all the valuables, so, but in a way, I always wonder why, like, royals and all that always have so much, even in Egypt, like, why do royals have so much wealth buried with them? The country, couldn't you just make a replica, like paint it or just put some nice decorations in there? Like, why use actual gold? Gold is a very valuable product. Why would you put it in a tomb where it will never be used for financial gains ever again? That's dumb. So it's hard to feel sorry for people that were so selfish that they take all the country's wealth and shove it in their tomb with them because, yeah, look, all I'm saying is how much wealth is really buried in these tombs, right? Yeah. So he's been discovered. He was about 5'1" from what I understand. He wasn't a very tall person. I don't think anyone really was back then, so don't look at it like, oh yeah, but like back then people weren't that tall, so that was probably quite normal. The other one also was Lu Bu, the flying general. He was also, his gravesite was discovered as well in Henan province, I believe. And I think there's speculation whether it is actually Lu Bu or not, but a couple of things identify him as Lu Bu. So there was a plaque or something that sort of identified him. The other things were that the tomb wasn't very, I think it was about 6 meters by 6 meters. It wasn't very big for a famous general. Yeah, I guess you could say that. He had a spear, like it was called a long hair. It wasn't the famous halberd spear that it was supposed to have. But I watched another guy's video and he said that Lu Bu probably wouldn't have used a halberd because it wasn't really popular back then. And he wasn't like a rich guy, like he came from a poor family and he claimed his status from skill. So, so he was a very adept warrior. I believe he was adept in about 18 different weapons. So he was a very adept warrior. So he probably just had a regular spear like everyone else. I don't know that that's true or not. Lu Bu was supposed to be part Mongolian, so he was supposed to be quite tall. This person in this tomb was quite tall. I don't know because it wasn't, the only video I could find is about 10 minutes long. The Chinese comments said it was a whole lot of nothing and, it's not Lu Bu. I don't know. Maybe the Chinese people are right and I'm wrong, but I can't imagine anyone else that it could have been in that tomb. Because pointing out and put a museum together for Lu Bu with the things found, or at least the acclaimed items might be Lu Bu. have a look, see what you think. I mean, yeah, and I mean, really, if the Chinese government are watching, please do some replica skeletons and armor and stuff, so we can get an idea of what these people might look like, and even a wax sculpture, like use the skull and make like the face out of like, you know, make it use plaster and that, and make a replica, and then make it like a wax one or something, like make something that we can see and go, oh, that's what they could look like. You know, that would be cool. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Yeah. So Lubu has definitely been, I would say, I can't imagine it being anyone else. There's been no other evidence for any other, you know, what could have happened. We know that Lubu was killed. I think he actually was killed by Tortor, actually. But yeah, so yeah, that would be interesting. And how he died, well, he died as a traitor, so there you go. Lubu was one for switching sides all the time, and eventually caught up with him. So, and it had something to do with women. I think a lot of that war started because he was after someone's wife or something. Yeah, so you can imagine how that all went. I'm surprised the war didn't end with his death, actually, because when you think about it, if the guy that's after the wife and that's the reason for everything, and then he's dead, kind of should have just ended any war, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, so that's that. So yeah, so Tortor has been found, and that's confirmed, and also Lubu, but that's not confirmed. So Chinese archaeologists have not confirmed that being Lubu. I don't know if they collected the items and the skeleton and everything, and we're going to test it and put it in museums. I don't know. Hard to say with the Chinese government, especially when it comes to history. They don't like talking about their own history for some reason. Apparently they're ashamed of their own history, so I don't know. I think they should have a proud history. I think it goes back 4,000 years. I think they should be very proud of that. But yeah, look, I mean, it is what it is. There's some interesting tales about different people, so I don't know why they wouldn't be proud of that, but whatever. Yeah, so look, yeah, and as for Tortor's tomb, yeah, they I guess you could say that yeah, his area was quite cultured as well, from what I understand from the artifacts found. So I guess it was nationwide. I guess you could say if the Han and the Wei were both also cultured, it would be safe to assume that it was just across the board, you know. The story of the first Chinese emperor, let's get to that, and then we'll get to his tomb and why I'm interested in it. So first Chinese emperor, very hilarious story, actually. It's a funny guy. So he wanted to live forever, right? He was one of those type of people. The I'm going to live forever BS guy. When everyone's like, nah, you're not. But okay. Anyway, so he went to his mystics and he says, make me an elixir that will make me live forever. And of course they all looked at him like, we can't do that. Like, we can do many things, but that's not one of them. So sorry, but no. Anyway, under pain of death, he said, you make me this elixir or I will kill you and your families. I think something like that. Maybe it was just kill them, but it could have been to motivate them more, as families as well. I don't know. Anyway, so so they just put together this elixir, which was probably about 90% mercury. And mercury is fatal to humans. So aliens, if you're watching, mercury is fatal to humans, okay? So don't douse our planet with mercury, please. Just saying. Not cool. Anyway, getting back to it, he wanted to live forever. He took this elixir and he died. So he did get to live forever, just in death. I don't know how anyone else can't find that. Even the slightest bit, what is it? The word I'm looking for. Ironic? Dumbass. Can't believe anyone that stupid. Yeah, you promised those guys you were going to kill them if you didn't. So, bye-bye. I don't think they knew that was going to happen, but super hilarious. So there, you be careful what you wish for, or the genie will provide. I mean, living forever doesn't mean living forever on Earth. It could be living forever in death, as we all do. So just remember that. Your words can have power, and in his case, they killed him. So who can't find that funny? I don't know. Even the Chinese must find that funny. Right. So his son put together this elaborate tomb for him. It took him like a long time, like 40 years or so. I don't know. It took him a long time to make this tomb. To hide it, he had all the workers killed, and it was supposed to be like 700,000 of them. They booby-trapped this thing with bow and arrows, crossbows, and they filled it with mercury to make rivers because they wanted to simulate the rivers that existed when, I think it's Xi Jingyuan. I'm probably not pronouncing it. It's Xi Jingyuan, Hwong. I think that's how you say it. I think I'm probably wrong. Look, I will say Australians are really bad at names, so we probably butcher everyone's name. Just know that's why we give everyone nicknames. That is our way. It is not on purpose. It's not to insult you. It's just because we're bad at names, and just accept that not everyone's perfect, not even Australians, even though we kind of are. But anyway, getting back to it. Right, so that's when then the tomb was buried and covered up and forgotten about because it was to protect the emperor. Couple of things during the time of the three romances, and there was an item that went missing, and it was the seal of the realm. Now, this item is the most valuable jade item in existence. If it was found, I watched a video, apparently the Chinese government would pay $1 trillion or more for this item. I am not joking. If you ever found this item, the value of this item is astronomically crazy. I don't know what the significance is behind it. I think it's to represent Chinese authority. Like if you have it, then it means you are the king or whatever. Something like that. So perhaps, I don't know. Maybe, might not be. I mean, you got to understand. Like, I mean, everything valuable is subjective to the person buying it. So, I mean, if it's the Chinese government buying it, I don't know what their exact reason for wanting it is. I don't know why they couldn't make another seal of the realm and then just say this is the new seal of the realm that has the same value as the old one. It's just an item. It's like this can. Right? It's just an item. There's nothing special about it. But when people put money on things like a Picasso or Mona Lisa or something and say that's what it's worth, well, suddenly it's worth that, even though it's just another item. All right? Anyway, getting to the point. So there's been stifling from the Chinese government in getting into the tomb, and they always quote the mercury and the traps and this and that. And the other major reason is they don't believe they can preserve the artifacts in there to an extent, because they have been into these tombs before where they come across famous leaders or important figures of the Chinese time. Surprisingly, were buried like Egyptian mummies. They were like, they had the whole mummification process done to them, and also were buried in jade suits. You should look that up, jade suit. Empress, I think it is, or Emperor, or jade suit tomb. It's very interesting. Anyway, these things were very elaborate, very expensive, and they have them in display, I think, actually. Um, yeah, tied up in red ribbon, silk ribbon, and everything like that. These are some amazing artifacts. Um, anyway, they kind of look like a man, like a stone man. Like you could, if you imagine a man made of stone, that's kind of what these suits look like. And they're made of jade mostly. I don't know if all of them are made of jade simply because of the cost, and it depended on how much money a particular person had. So it just shows that the Chinese put a lot of importance on death, as the Egyptians did. Okay, so the Egyptians, as we know, really valued death and the afterlife, and seems that the Chinese followed that same trend. So I'm wondering if the Egyptians have some historical connection with the Chinese. And I suppose the Chinese will say no, they don't, and the Egyptians will say yes, they do, because everyone does. But yeah, it's interesting, right? So that's interesting in itself. I don't know. So you'd have to ask archaeologists about that, and I'm pretty certain none of them would really give you a real answer to it, because a lot of people are like politicians. They like dancing around the subject. They won't definitively say yes or no to anything, which is really irritating. But maybe I would just say, look, with the current understanding and information we have about the world, yes, or in their case, maybe no. Okay, so that's how I would look at it. Take it or leave it however you want. Right. So they believe that they can't preserve these artifacts because the artifacts that were taken out of the previous tombs disintegrated or got like white, like the colors faded or something. Like it was something like that. I argue, however, that having a tomb filled with mercury, and like this tomb is supposed to be, I don't think many artifacts would actually be working, or I think the fumes from that mercury would have destroyed anything more than oxygen would, personally. I mean, I don't think it matters. That's how I think. Like, I think if you're worried about the preservation of the artifacts, I just don't see how any of these artifacts could potentially be any more damaged being surrounded by mercury than they would be in an oxygen environment or something like that. I would say that if your team is ready, you would have, you get in there, you take one artifact out at a time, you oil it, you put it in a cloth, whatever, and then when it gets to the museum, you put it in like a preservation tank, or I don't know, like, I don't really know how all this works, but I mean, I'm thinking about paintings. Like paintings, they seal it in like a plastic and everything. So, yeah, or glass, they seal it in glass or plastic. I'm not sure. Anyway, so preservation is not an issue. As for the mercury, that is not an issue because we invented a thing called gas masks many years ago in World War One and prior. So mercury isn't really an issue for the Chinese archaeologists or team that's going in there. I mean, to look at the artifacts and potentially bring stuff out and get photos and whatnot and try and get a bearing as to what's in there, So I don't believe that that's the case. I think that, the risk to life is not great going into this tomb. I don't believe that anyone's life would be greatly at risk. The other thing is the traps. Well, okay, let's say these crossbow traps actually work still to this day, which after 2,000 years or 3,000 years or whatever, I don't think so. But I don't think that the look, crossbows back then, to make the spring-loaded string, you had to use animal tendons, right? So it was made of a fibrous material, and it was made of like ligaments. So I think of it like a bowstring as ligament, like like the rabbit, for example, has like ligaments that make it jump. So they would use those ligaments to make a string. In this case, they probably didn't use rabbit. They probably used something else, but that's how these bowstrings are made. That's why the intestines and all that, they're all used for bowstrings. Something like that. But bowstrings aren't actually made of string. Back in the day, they're made of animal flesh. I think, yeah. So ligaments and muscles, and basically they're all woven together into a strong cord. And obviously, the different kind of animals are going to give you different strength and different lengths and whatnot. But in this case, so we're talking about even if they were made of rope, it wouldn't matter. Okay, because rope is a fibrous material again as well, so rope is not going to be an issue. Come here then. Come here then. I can't see you. I can't see you. You have to come to Steve. Come to you, Steve. Yeah, come to you. No. Oh, you got wet. That's why you're upset. Well, too bad. It's raining outside, so the cat got upset. Why don't you say hello, cat? Oh, sorry. It's all right. Say hello, Booties. No. You can jump up. Look, I'm moving the keyboard. No. Don't run away. You wanted attention. Now you're getting it there. Yeah, sorry. So the bowstrings probably aren't really a threat, but assuming that they are, let's assume that these crossbows are still lethal. There is an easy solution to that. Yeah, it's called Kevlar body armor. We use that for riot police and special service soldiers, right? So we got that. You know, we can stop a crossbow hitting a person and killing them. I don't know if it would stop them from getting hurt or having a bad day, but like taking an injury of some kind, but they ain't going to die. And there's a second thing that you can add to that, and that is a riot shield, which is those big bulletproof glass shields that you could just walk in front of. So if you set one of these traps off, bang, it hits the shield, and even if you miss and you don't stop it and it hits you, if you've got Kevlar body armor, you're not going to die. So you'll be fine. All right, so you're not going to die, you'll be fine. So they can't turn around and say that there's a risk to life, because there really isn't. Okay, and as for this mercury is a liquid, okay? We've got water pumps and cement mixer pumps and things like that can pump liquid out, right? So not only can we pump it out, we can put it in a tank so you can preserve it if you want to. And say, this is the stuff. And I don't know, but you could do that, all right? So that's not an impossibility. That's not overly difficult to do, all right? So getting past the mercury, gas masks, pumps with big tanks and containers, and you can put filters on these pumps so that you're not sucking any of the artifacts away, all right? So you could basically put like a mesh filter on there, so anything that's coming towards the artifact is not like towards the pump, it's not going to get sucked away, all right? So that's not an issue. And as for the traps, yeah, you got your body armor and your shield. So don't believe that life is at all at risk. And I believe that the mercury would do more damage to the objects than anything that we do now. So I think that the Chinese government are just scared to open it. I don't really know why. My guess is I think it's image, actually. I think it's image to the culture. I think that's why. I think they're afraid that it's going to damage their image or something. The government's always afraid of their image being ruined. That's why the government's always so protective of words and actions, because they don't ever want to be seen as weak. And I don't know if opening this tomb sees them as weak, but if they fail, maybe that's what they would see it as. Like, if we open this tomb and things get wrecked, well, people will see us as colossal failures rather than successful people that opened the most famous tomb in modern history, and now we can put like a big display on history on everyone to come and see, and we're going to get lots of money from tourism and everything, like, and there's going to be stories to tell, and the world is going to be focused on us, and they're going to be so interested in everything we do with this tomb, but they won't do it because I think they're afraid that if they make any mistake, that apparently the world will see them as weak. But no, look, I don't think anyone would see that as weak or whatever. Like, we've all got the same technology. If you couldn't do it, we couldn't do it. But look, I believe that it can be done. It should be done, and I believe that I believe that there's no more risk to damage than anything else that's already been done to the artifacts. I mean, we don't even know if grave robbers have been in this tomb. We don't even know that because they won't open it. So we don't even know if it's been prior damage. I mean, they got into Tortor's tomb. So if they got in there, how come they couldn't get into the first emperor tomb? I mean, there's no reason to believe they wouldn't. If there's that much valuables sitting in there, somebody would risk their life for it. Nobody would be crazy enough to leave valuables and not have someone come look for it. You know, that is why you have tomb raiders, right? Not Lara Croft style, but the style that just takes stuff. Anyway, moving on to a different location, and this location is not very as well known. It was something a friend of mine brought up at work, Patswami Temple in India. Our 5 doors out of 6 were opened, and the last one, people said they couldn't open it. Reading in comments that it said that they could open it, but the prince or the king and the queen of that time, or in that area, apparently India still has kings and queens and royals, and these people have influence in the government. I didn't know that, but there you go. They stopped it. They made up some BS about destroying the world. As we are logical thinking people today, we know that that's not going to happen. All right, opening a temple is not going to destroy the world. All right, we know that. But what was found in that tomb, the temple that made everyone be like, wow, there was so many offerings of wealth from kings and queens back in the day and peasants and whatnot. And it was in the billions, right? So the value of Patswami Temple was in the billions of dollars of gold. Billions! Like, they opened up, so it's a vaults, right? They opened up 5 out of 6 vaults. The last one was a stone door, had 2 snakes, or has 2 snakes. It's not had, it still exists there. So it has 2 snakes, and it's sealed, and they say that the key doesn't work. Well, that's not an excuse, okay? Because we can literally get past things like that, all right? We've got oxy cutters, so we can just cut the lock off. Or other option is that you get a locksmith in there to look at it. Or I think they said that, actually reading the comments said that someone was going to come back with an oxy cutter or something like that and open the door, but that's when they said, no, don't open the door. Why? Yeah, apparently it'll destroy the world, but we know that that's not going to happen. So I'm sorry, Indian government, but that's not an excuse. That's pathetic. All right. You can open that door, then just bloody well open it. Stop pussyfooting around. We want to see what's inside the room. All right, get some cameras, get a documentary team, get some monks or some Hindu people, whatever, that, you know, will protect the site so your site isn't damaged. You know, a lot of respect, but we want to see what's in there. All right, just stop hiding. I really hate mysteries. Okay, I really hate mysteries. I'm one of those people that if there's a mystery to be solved, I will smash through it to get to it, because I'll be like, no mystery for me. I want to know. Bang! I'm going through it like a sledgehammer. Look, and it being a stone door, not being funny, but we can break stone. Okay, like we can literally break stone with tools. A sledgehammer, for example, and some of those. Look, we could do it back in the day in Egyptian times. You put those I've seen people do it. You get like a metal spike, and then you get the sledgehammer, and then you hammer, bang, 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 and then you just put a line of these spikes down the door, right? Yeah, and then you just keep smack, 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 and you just do it in a line. Eventually, the stone cracks. Obviously, when it gets to a point, if the stone ain't cracking, you take the old spike out, then you put a bigger spike in there, and you just keep doing that until you crack that door, right? That's how you crack the door. Not that difficult. It's annoying, and it would be a lot of hard work, but it's not an impossibility. I mean, we literally got rock breakers, so that it probably wouldn't be necessary. But I mean, if you want to be gentle about it, that's how you'd be gentle. Like you literally just crack the door, and that would be it. I think that the Hindu yogis or whatever that are protecting the site don't want to really display the value in the site as far as financial is, because there was already billions found in the others. This one was the most protected, so obviously there was something incredibly valuable behind that door. I tell you what, though, what I actually think it is. I don't think it's gold, right? And I'll tell you why, and especially with their words of warning. There might be at least some truth to their story, but it's not truth that we would understand. Right, so you know how India has like 100 gods or 300 gods or whatever? Like India loves their gods. They have a god for everything, right? They'll have a god for phone one day. But it's part of their culture. They just say, look, no one god can rule everything. So we have lots of gods that do lots of different jobs. Okay, fine. That's fine. Not going to argue. Just saying. That's how I understand your culture. Right, so hang on, I'm doing a bite. Brain fart. Okay, so the interesting thing there is, what if that temple wasn't a temple to start with? What if it was a tomb, right? And it wasn't a tomb for a royal or a king or a special yogi? What if it was one of the original gods of India? How cool would that be? Like, how awesome would that be to find an actual tomb of a god, a real god, at least as people worshipped and treated as a god? Could be, like, I guess you could say they were a god at one point, but what if it was like a bad god? And that's why they're saying it'll destroy the world. Like, they sealed this thing away, like Kali Ma or Shiva. Shiva's not really bad. So Shiva is birth and destruction. So technically not bad. Just a symbol of life. They had some. There was a female one that they do like parades and stuff, and this one like drank demon blood and stuff. Went crazy. What was that person's? That would be awesome, right? I'd really like to know if they actually were blue, or whether they were just painted as blue. Because it's why blue? Okay, Indians, people out there, please explain to me why all your gods and supreme beings, I guess you could say, are blue and not brown, right? It's not really, like, I'm half Indian. You can see this is my skin color, right? So why are your people in your religion blue? I want to know that. Tell me in the comments if you know the answer to that, because I'd be very, very curious as to know why that is. Anyway, so that's why the tomb wasn't open. It's because these king, they basically interfered. Dick move, by the way, king and queen of Patswami Temple. That's a dick move, all right? The people of India are very angry with you for that, because they wanted to see what was inside, as did the rest of the world, because, we love solving mysteries, all right? So you've ruined it. You've made the mystery last longer than it needed to be. Could have been uncovered. And look, worst case scenario, you could break that door down with deck cord. I mean, they say there's nothing to push on and there's nothing to pull on, so there's no handle, and it's like perfectly sealed. So Is that another option on there? What if it's not really a door? What if it's just a rock wall? Like, what if it's a trick? What if there never was a sixfold? What if it's just a rock wall? There's that too. But let's go back to what I was talking about, because I like that. Let's go back to that. What if it is a god, and we found the gravesite of a god? Like, come on, people! Like, nobody's seen an Indian god before. Like, that would be so awesome. Like, and you could do like scrapings of the skeleton to find, like, to see the DNA, see if they're human, see if they, what kind of food they ate, how old they were, all that stuff. Come on, who wouldn't find that awesome? It's not like you'd have damaged the skeleton. You would keep it all preserved, right? Then you could set up a tent, like you could set up a museum. People could come and see the god. Like, come on, who would not find that awesome? There might even be writings in there that tell of these supposed Vimanas. Like, I mean, it's been mentioned, basically flying temples, right? Well, obviously we know that isn't the case. There's no such thing as a flying temple, but I mean, it would still be really cool, all right? Like, there'd be a cool story in there. There would be a really cool story. What it would lead to, I don't know. Why, I don't know, but it would be cool. Like, so maybe the Hindu yogis know this, and they're just protecting the temple for that reason, because they're saying, well, we don't really want you disturbing a gravesite of a god. Well, because that's what humanity does. We want to know everything, right? We want to become the gods ourselves. We want to know everything. Like, we want to know everything there is to know about the world, especially all the mysteries. Right. So that's what I had to say about the Patswami Temple. It's in South India. And I think it's about the left side of India. So at least how I think of the map, it's on the left side. Anyway, take it or leave it however you want on that one. You might disagree with me, you probably do, that you don't think it's the tomb of a god, but I would think that would be way cooler than finding treasure. Like, that would be the value of that, especially to the Indian people, like, to see what it is and who it is that brought about their culture. They don't have to believe or disbelieve it's a god or not. It doesn't matter. The point is they can know their own history. That's what's important. All right? And there's a lot of history there, right? So India's history goes back about 15,000 years that we know. Japan history goes back about 28,000 years that we know. Yes, it does. It's like, it does. Okay, there's like literal, like, Japan was originally settled, I don't know by who, but I don't know if they come from China or whatever. They were sort of a bit of a nomadic people. They started farming there, right? So there's the whole thing about these particular plates and artifacts from that time. And teeth at that time showed that they were eating grain, so they were settled and farming. And those people had actually moved to Korea and settled Korea. So Korea's ancestors come from Japan. All right, I don't know if Japan's ancestors come from China, but I do know that. So hang on a second. So yeah, so there's that. Right. So moving away from archaeology, come here, then. Don't yell at me. Just come to Steve. Come to your Steve. No, come to your Steve. Don't yell at me. Just come to your. Oh, hang on a second. Yes. That's what you get for mowing at your Steve. Get it cut a little bit. All right. Right. No escaping. No escaping. I gotcha. I'm not going to fall. See? Right. Oh, she likes to be held like that. See, because it supports her back. She's not getting put in a weird position. That's just a normal position for her back. And her weight is on her paws, so she's very held. Except trying to escape because she doesn't like being held. Yes, especially if she knows she's the center of attention. Right. So getting on to astronomy. So I've been doing some research into black holes because they are one of the great mysteries of our time, because they are the unknown. But with all these telescopes and everything that have been pointed at these black holes, we now know a huge amount about them that we didn't before. So one thing we know is they're extremely magnetic. They have a very big magnetic field. Interestingly enough, actually. Another thing is they don't have like a huge pull. Like you don't just go to a black hole and then they just suck you in like that, right? Kind of like a tornado, where you just get caught in the whirlpool and just get spun like really fast until you get shredded to nothing and then you get dragged in. So yeah, so that's interesting. So that's why. Okay, so I'll just skip over some things. Basically, you'll never see a big star near the center of the black hole, and that's because in the accretion disk they get ripped apart until they become like a small star, or like a star like our M star in our galaxy. In our solar system. So that's interesting. I don't know if you guys find that interesting. I find that interesting, and it makes you wonder that is that to do with like a couple of different factors at play there that I don't know if it's been considered, but probably has. But yeah, they just say, look, the faster you go, the smaller you get. So you'll never see a big star near the center of the black hole. The other interesting thing is, it's not a really big pool. It's like apparently they self-manage themselves with how much energy they absorb at any one time. And yes, the way they act is very magnetic. I think they also said that one of the good examples of what these black holes sort of act like is a simulation called a KERS black hole, KERS. And the images taken from these black holes give it that egg shape sort of thing. Like they're not like a circle; they're more like an egg, or like an oval. So their simulation has proved more accurate than some of the others. Whether or not there's different kinds of black holes, there might be circular ones, there might be KERS ones, there might be sound ones and all that they mention. But yeah, they all seem to display this highly magnetic action. I think, look, I don't see black holes as dangerous and scary like other people might. I don't think like that. And the reason why is because a black hole acts no different to a giant star or even our own sun. Basically, once something's in its orbit, it's not necessarily going to get drawn any closer. And it's going to like maintain an equilibrium, right? So you're not necessarily going to get sucked into your doom, unless you deliberately go there. Then you probably would. But yeah, so they kind of display the same characteristics of a star, and I guess that makes sense since they're supposed to be a collapsed giant star. So I guess the same principles of gravity and what we know about the universe to still apply to these black holes. It'll still be the same. So, I mean, there's no reason to believe that they suddenly change the laws of physics, right? So even though people say that they do, they kind of don't. So that's kind of one interesting factor. Like one thing I know about elements is elements like in chemistry love to balance out. They don't particularly like to be like unbalanced. That's why in a fission reaction, you get this massive explosion and then everything fizzles out and goes. Because the material inside doesn't want to do that. It's trying to reestablish equilibrium. That's why it's splitting all those neutrons, right? So yeah, so it's kind of like it's like the universe. Look, there's no reason also to believe that the universe would act any different to chemicals that are here on Earth. Okay, so I know some people might say, but no, the universe is made of the same chemicals. There's no reason to believe that the laws of entropy and everything wouldn't exist the same. So trying to do two things at once. So yeah, so that's so interestingly, yeah, you're not going to get sucked into a black hole like you see on those things. Not necessarily anyway. Not unless you deliberately go to it. And the things that are caught in it, they spun really fast, so they spin up to like 30% the speed of light or more. So everything that gets caught in that accretion disk gets ripped to pieces. It makes you wonder if you could actually fly a ship near the accretion dish and use it to speed you up so you can go close to the speed of light. I'm just thinking. So what I find interesting about the black hole is it's yeah. Look, I don't really see them as any more dangerous than a giant star because I think that they react the same and they act the same. And I mean, people talk about this big void in the black hole, but okay. So think about it like this. This is what I think. Some of the things that a black hole does, and I think the proof is already been proven, but people just haven't looked at it as that. So we know the universe is mostly made of dark matter, right? So we know that, like, what is it, like 90% of the universe is dark matter or something like that. Like it's this matter we don't know what it is, right? But we do know a couple of things. That there is regular matter. There are these black holes that produce Hawking radiation, and we also know, according to the laws of thermodynamics, nothing can be destroyed or it just gets turned into something else, right? So we know that, right? So we know those different properties exist about the universe. Like, we know that. Saying that, is a potential that I think Hawking radiation releases a lot of electrons and photons. And these items are not immaterial, like they do have a mass of some sort. And even though they're very small, I think it's like the fundamental stuff of the universe, like basically what everything's created of, like eventually joins together and forms other, like carbon, like it forms other chains and other strands, right? Okay, so I think dark matter is basically just the leftovers of what these black holes have left. They're basically like clumps of electrons, photons, like whatever's left over from Hawking radiation. I think that would make sense. So you know that you get these big jets that come out of these black holes, right? That spin everything really, really fast, and then they eventually suck all break everything down, suck it all in, and then shoot it out, right? Well, what happens to all of that? Because it isn't nothing, right? So it's not nothing, it's a something. That's probably what dark matter is, right? Whatever the leftovers are from these black holes, that's dark matter. All right, that would be my guess. I think that makes the most sense from what I've seen, and it kind of makes sense for these black holes as well, because if they really are these big magnetic balls of matter, I suppose it makes sense because the internal parts will basically be very filled with a lot of like things that are magnetic hold a lot of electrons. So basically, it's holding too many electrons, so it's spitting them out. It's trying to equalize. That's why it's spitting them out. It has too much matter. It's trying to spit it out so that it doesn't, it doesn't lose its equilibrium. That's how I see the Hawking radiation. So I think that the insight is basically electrons, like solid matter, like that like something that's magnetic, something that has a strong magnetic property about it, and probably some form of gaseous and liquid existence because it's spinning so fast. Kind of like the sun. Probably a lot like the sun, actually. So that's how I see black holes. Now, another thing that makes me think that dark matter is definitely something, right? And the accretion disk is a good proof of that, right? Because instead of these big balls of, like, a lot of the times we think of the universe as, this existence where there's like the space, there's nothing in space. Well, we know that's not true. We know that there is, I'll use an example from Earth. All right, so the reason why a plane can only go to Mach 3.1 without killing everyone inside is, or 3.3 or whatever the SR-71 did, is because of the air resistance against the aircraft was building up so much that it's heating the aircraft so much that it would melt and set fire to the people inside, right? So we know that. We've got proof of that, right? That's proof. So we know that, right? So, and that's at the very thin, like 100,000 kilometer, 90,000 kilometer above Earth, or not kilometer, sorry, not 90,000 feet or 100,000 feet above the ground, right? So it's very high up. There's very little oxygen. This jet is just zooming through almost, yeah. So, and that's on Earth, okay? Now we see around the accretion disk these big balls, these big suns that get caught in this thing, this big, and it gets slowly whittled down to like a regular sized sun, like our sun, right? So it gets like a big blender, and like a centrifuge. Everything goes out and just gets like separated and everything, right? So we know that, right? Well, what's causing that to happen, right? Because, there has to be something that ball of sun is pushing against to basically strip it, right? Because matter doesn't just hit nothing and then just get shredded, right? If space was really empty, there'd be no reason why you wouldn't have great big suns around the center of a black hole, right? But we don't, and we know that. So that tells you that the in-between of space is not filled with nothing. And say, for example, this dark matter that's getting blown out of this black hole, it's like full of electrons and photons and all sorts of different things, and being smashed right against these bigger suns. That's why you see them slowly whittle down, because it's like grinding it away slowly. So that tells us that space is not empty or void of. It's not an empty void. There is stuff between stuff. We just don't. It's just so. It's so little of it that we don't really think of it as like being filled with much. But what the proof is out there is that yes, actually it is filled with stuff. So we just don't really see it. But I would say that that goes hand in hand with that dark matter, that you've got lots of little electrons and photons and radiation and sonic waves and all sorts of different things that are happening out there that are just like just rubbing against these big celestial objects, and that's what's stripping them down. All right, so take it or leave it however you want, believe whatever you want to believe. I mean, you might think I'm an idiot. I'm obviously not an astronomer. I'm just a guy. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I'm not an expert. That's how I see it, at least with those things. Tell me what you think, guys. I hope you enjoyed the segment. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything in particular. Just keep it reasonable. I'm not going to talk about stupid things, so don't bring up stupid things. I'm not going to talk about them. Like, and you know what I'm talking about, right? Don't try and troll me in the comments and get me to talk about something dumb. I'm not going to do that, but if I get lots of votes for like a particular subject, obviously I'll talk about that. Except for personal life stuff, unless, yeah. So I'll exclude personal life stuff. So don't bring that up. Don't think I'll talk about that. That's private. So none of your business. But other stuff like actual subjects and that, yeah, no worries. We can talk about it. All right, peace. Take it easy, guys. Bye.